السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. Some people have been asking about the Prius cat thefts, which are very common nowadays. So I'm going to share in this voice note what I know of it, and I have looked into it quite a bit. In the hope that this may be of some help to you and perhaps save you some money or an awful lot of inconvenience. So first and foremost, this has been something which was very common in the United States for a long time. Apparently there are some certain states, that you can see YouTube videos. People have been nicking these in America for a long time, more than 10 years. But in the UK, in the last few months, this has become very common. First, it was quite common from what I could gather on the forums in North London, places like Enfield, Hendon, and so on and so forth. But now, in the last week or so, and I'm talking on Thursday, 28th February 2019, there have been a lot of thefts in Blackburn, and it's apparently spreading all over the country. So what are these thieves doing? They are sometimes in broad daylight, sometimes in the middle of a busy street, in a packed supermarket car park, and sometimes on people's own driveways. Stopping, they usually have large German vehicles like Skodas and Passats and Audis. They will stop the vehicle, right? Few big burly guys, 2 or 3 of them will be there. One of them will get out and jack the Prius up, and another one will climb underneath with a reciprocating saw, a battery powered one, and they can do the whole thing in easily under 2 minutes. So if they drive past the Prius, from the time that they actually drive past the car, stop, and from that time until they've actually done everything, got back in the car and driven away, they can do it easily within 2 minutes, perhaps even 1 minute. That's how easy it is for them, and that's how efficient they are. So one of them jacks it up, the other one climbs underneath, makes 2 very quick snips on either side of the catalytic converter, and then they get back in the car and they go. They obviously don't care about people seeing them. Sometimes they have kind of masks on, sometimes they don't bother, and the police basically are not doing anything about this because it's a low priority crime, and they just refer people to the insurance company and say to make an insurance claim. Why are they doing this? The Toyota Priuses and even some other Toyotas, because my mechanics told me that he's had Celicas and things like that with their cats stolen. Apparently 10 years ago or more, they used to use a high quantity of raw precious metals like palladium and rhodium and some other platinum. And these catalytic converters, because the price of those metals has gone up, they have a large scrap value. How much that is, I don't know. Apparently in America it's like $300 or more, which means in this country it could be £200-300. And for 2 minutes of almost risk-free work for them, it's obviously an easy profit. Now, why don't they steal newer ones or other cars? Because apparently the newer ones don't have the same cats in them. Generally speaking, newer ones, they use a different, what they do is they have a ceramic core. So they're these like donut type things that are inside the cats, for those people who are interested in that. And it's like a mesh or a grid that the exhaust gases pass through. So originally they used to apparently make them from the raw metals or purely from the metals, but now they make a ceramic honeycomb type thing, and then they just plate it in those metals, which makes it a lot cheaper and a lot less valuable in scrap metal. So that's why the 2009 Gen 3 Prius onwards are not being targeted. What can you do? What can you do other than constantly sitting in your car, or keeping it in a garage, there's not really any way I can think of, practically speaking, physically, that to protect your car. People's cats have been stolen in all places, other than when they've been in the car or the car's in the garage. So what can you do to prevent it? I can't think of much at all to entirely prevent it, but there are a couple of things out there. From America, there's a company called Cat Strap, and what they do is they make this kind of contraption where you strap your exhaust in various different things like metal cables and some Kevlar strapping, and you kind of weld it onto there, and then that will make it very difficult for them to cut off with the sawzall, with the reciprocating saw. That costs about 150 quid. There have been some people who have imported it to the UK. So I've been looking into it for the last for a month or so, but I wouldn't recommend that. Why? Because number one, it costs about 150 quid. In America, you're going to pay about 80 quid for shipping, and then you have to either take the whole thing off yourself. That means you need a lift or jack and jack stands, and you have to do all of that yourself, or you have to pay a mechanic probably more than replacing an exhaust in terms of labor to fit that. That's one option. The second option is to do the same thing but to get the parts yourself, so you can save a bit of money. Instead of buying that cat strap device, you can just buy the parts like the Kevlar what do you call that thing, the Kevlar strap, and some stainless steel cable, and you can wrap it yourself. It'll cost you less money, but the labor is still the same. You won't have to pay for shipping. However, my kind of reservation there is that if they've got the time and they've got the kind of comfort, let's just say your car's in a car park and they've got a reciprocating saw, they might try to hack it off from further down. They might, cause your car more damage just trying to get it off. Or they might cut your exhaust higher up near the manifold if they can reach it, which will cost you even more to then replace, and so on and so forth. So I don't know if and it will cost you a lot of money to get that installed. The solution that I would recommend, right, and I'm only recommending this after like a month of thought and kind of internet research, is to actually preemptively replace your exhaust and your cat specifically yourself. If it gets stolen, why is that? Because if it gets stolen, the first thing you're going to hear, you'll turn the engine on and it will sound like a tractor. Then if you put your head under the car, you should see the sensor cable dangling. If you put your phone video recording with the light on underneath the car, you will see that there's like a section of the exhaust missing, right? So what you have to do is you have to buy a new midsection for the exhaust, which you can buy on eBay for about £100 with 2 days delivery. And then because they chop the sensor off, you have to buy a replacement sensor, which costs between £35 and £55. So that's about £150 in parts, and then labor is going to be between £50 and maybe £150. And your car is going to be off the road at least for a couple of days. If you just turn up to a standard independent garage and say, I want my exhaust replaced, they'll probably quote you £500. And if you go to Toyota, they'll probably quote you £1,500 to £2,000, which is obviously a lot of money. And the chances are they'll put an original exhaust on, which will be sought after by the thieves again. Now, some people say that there's no point replacing it, just sell your car because the thieves will come after it again. So this is the main reason why I took a long time before I recommended anything to anybody. And I've had my replacement exhaust, aftermarket cheap exhaust, which is about 100 quid, on there for about a month now. And loads of people have, as reported on online forums. Now, none of them have yet been stolen, and we ask Allah to protect everybody. And in particular, where I park mine, another Prius had its cat stolen recently. Now, at the same time, other Priuses that were there with the new aftermarket cat did not get stolen. And also the videos that have been posted online, some of them show them first getting out, looking under the car and checking the cat. So according to what my mechanic also advised, and he's got a lot of experience with this kind of, dealing with these kind of incidents, he said that they can recognize an aftermarket cat, immediately, and they know it's not worth their hassle, because if they cut it out, then they're not going to get any money for it, basically. So it's not worth the hassle. It's scrap value, if anything, because if the whole midsection is £99 brand new, then the scrap value of just the cat part can't, in theory, be more than like £20-30. So it seems that they're not going after aftermarket exhausts. So if you replace it yourself, it will cost you perhaps 150, because you won't have to replace the sensor. It will also potentially save you from that hassle, that inconvenience, having your car off the road. There are some people who use them for their livelihood, so that will cost them even more in loss of earnings. Have it off the road for a week, a few days at least. I haven't heard of anyone replacing it in less than 2 days. And all that stress and hassle and peace of mind that you can just leave your car, as we used to with our Toyota Priuses, anywhere, wherever you want to, really. Then the other thing is, and I haven't managed to explore this yet, but in theory you'll have your own old original Toyota Cat, which has inside it some precious metal. So if you can find anywhere legitimate to actually sell that off for scrap metal, there's in theory you could not only recover your costs, but if you can really get £200-300 for it, you will actually make a little bit of money on top. So this is what I have come to after quite a bit of thought about this, and this is just a suggestion from me, or thinking aloud. I'm not, make your own decision. And if your cat still gets stolen, which is in theory possible, I can't guarantee that doesn't happen. It's in theory possible, if, for example, they are indiscriminate and they just like, let us just nick it and we'll see later, or if they are like, it's dark and they don't recognize that it's an aftermarket cat, or they just like out of spite think we're gonna nick it anyway, or Allah knows what else could be the case. But that's my current feeling. And if I in hindsight, if I knew what I know now, I would have actually done that myself, for those reasons. I've spoken to various people about it. Some people say, yeah, they're probably just sending them abroad, so they don't care. They'll just put them in the pile with the other ones, and that's why they'll probably still nick it. I don't follow that logic, because even if they are shipping them abroad, it would be completely inefficient for them to ship them how they are. So they would be cutting open and extracting, or maybe even melting down the metals themselves. So, it wouldn't be worth their hassle to cut open and, take apart a cat that doesn't actually have that degree of raw metals inside. And if they're selling it to dealers as well, these guys will be very, sharp, and they'll recognize these things. I don't think they're going to be that stupid. So that's my suggestion. I hope it's of some benefit. And I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps everybody safe from all forms of harm and difficulty. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.